Minutes. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Balava Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Gopi Jana Balava Girivaradhari Gopi Yashodanandana Jai Vishvad, Paramahans, and Paramajacharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Jai. ISKCON Svandracharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Jai. Shri Radharani Ishwara Ki, Jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki, Jai. Shri Giri Govardhan Ki, Jai. Shri Gonitai Ki, Jai. Sankirtan Yagya Ki, Jai. Go Premanande. All glories to the Son devotees. All glories to the Son devotees. All glories to the Son devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. His office of praise to the office chair. And not to the job. Thank you, God. Could I have a cushion? Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presta Bhutale Shamati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachane Nirvishesha Shukavadi Paschatya Deshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Pramunityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchikalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So devotees and friends, we are continuing on with our seminar here, as recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam. At least there's a list of 21 demons who Krishna encountered, and most of them he killed during the course of his pastimes in Vrindavan. Actually, there was a lot more. There were thousands, but just 21 are recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam. They're particularly important, and each one represents, as we said, a different anatha. Artha means something useful, and anatha means something useless, or even not just useless, but detrimental. what would you say, like a magician type of person. And I don't mean like the ones who do little card tricks and sleight of hand, you know, and supposedly cut ladies in half. You know what I mean? But of course, they're not cutting ladies in half. It's a trick to fool you. So, but now this is someone who actually, he has magical powers, like really magical powers. So what he did, he transformed himself, would you believe, into a whirlwind, sort of like a tornado sort of thing. And he picked up Krishna, who was down on the ground, and he wanted to kill him by taking him taking Krishna way up. You know, I got involved in Krishna consciousness a little over 50 years ago. Where were you 50 years ago? In your previous life is the right answer, I think. You're not 50 years old, are you? No. Excuse me. So yeah, your previous life. And Trinavarta, in his previous life, it's really interesting actually. Now this is according to Brahma-Vaivarta Purana, which is a Vedic literature, and therefore is, generally speaking, very authoritative. It's not just like someone beamed something up like some sort of novel or something, James Bond, you know, just dreaming up something like that. These are records, historical records from the distant past, meaning thousands of years ago. So anyway, according to Brahma-Vaivarta Purana, Trinavarta in his previous life was a king of a particular area called Pandya Desh. His name was Sahasraksha, and he was cursed by a person named Durvasa Muni, because this king Sahasraksha, he and his wives, he had multiple wives, they were bathing somewhere naked, and this Durvasa Muni happened to pass by, and he felt offended by seeing this man and these ladies bathing with no clothes on. And so he cursed the king. He cursed the king to live on earth for, how's this, 100,000 years. But then this Sahasraksha, this king, he appealed to Durvasa Muni that please, you know, please be kind enough, don't, you know, just sort of destroy me like this. Give me a chance to recover. So Durvasa Muni then modified the curse that, okay, after 100,000 years, you'll be killed by Lord Krishna and you'll be freed from the curse. 100,000 years, how's that? Cursed by Durvasa Muni. I don't know if many of you have heard of Durvasa Muni. Have you heard of Durvasa Muni? Okay. Have you heard? Yeah. Oh, you have? Okay, good. Well done. So, Durvasa Muni, he's a character. He is a Vedic, like mystical sage. He's not really a devotee. He's not a devotee. Although he knows about Krishna something, but he's not devoted to Krishna. He's more into like having magical powers and mystical powers and doing things with those powers that he has, like cursing people. Now, one very interesting thing, catch this. Of the 21 demons, I mean, we mentioned the other day they weren't all demons, but those 21, let's just for convenience sake call them demons, who Krishna encountered. Approximately, not quite half, but close to it, became demons because they were cursed by Durvasa Muni. How's that? He's a hard man. Watch out. If you see him coming, head the other way quickly. Because he's hypersensitive. If you just look at him, just sort of for a second, and he says, "What are you looking at?" And he gets really worked up about it. And he may curse you. He may curse you. And something like this, 100,000 years. Oh my God. Just for something which is, pretty trivial, really. So therefore we say, an interesting point, at least I find it interesting, Durvasa Muni, he curses and curses, and he's cursed lots of people, generally for trivial things. So he is, we say, he is a serial curser. Yeah. He's got a real problem. He's just too much prone to curse. And let me just tell you a little story about Durvasa Muni. One time, Durvasa Muni was walking through the Vrindavan area, sort of the greater Vrindavan area. It's a big area, 180 square miles. So he was walking through, and it was a hot day. In the Vrindavan area, it's often hot. So he's walking through, and it's hot and dry, and he becomes very hungry and thirsty, particularly hungry. He really wants something to eat. But in those days, devotees and friends, guess what? They didn't have supermarkets that you could just drop into. Wow, that's interesting. No supermarkets. There was life before supermarkets. There was also life before cell phones. So anyway, there he is. He's in the Nandagram area. I think many of you wouldn't be really familiar with that area. That's where Krishna lived in the last 3 years and about 6 months of the time he was in the Vrindavan area. Yeah. So he lived there in Nandagram, and Srimati Radharani, Krishna's eternal consort, was at that time living nearby. It's only like 3 or 4 kilometers away, or 5 maybe. It's called Yavat. She was living there. She was married to this fellow called Abhimanyu. And she, Radharani, is the most extremely qualified young lady, just in terms of beauty, in terms of intelligence, in terms of personal culture, just the type of person she is. Yes. Ajao, ajao. Aye, aye. Betiye, betiye up. Take hai. Take hai? Ah. Take. Okay. All right. Happy. Bahut sukhi hai. Very good. Right. So there we were. Srimati Radharani is extremely qualified in just incredibly qualified in all respects. And this Abhimanyu, her husband, it was a magically arranged marriage, because he is a bit of in Jewish circles they would say he was a bit of a schmuck. Yes. I don't know if you know what that means, but just the sound of it gives you an idea. A klutz. I mean, he was like a goofball, a goofy fellow, and just like the opposite to Srimati Radharani. But the marriage is there. She was still associating with Krishna. The marriage was there just to create a magical type of challenge in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Anyway, that's by the way. But now Durvasa Muni is moving around that area between Yavat and Nandagram, feeling very hot and just, very inconvenienced and uncomfortable. And he doesn't know what to do. But then suddenly, what does he see? Who does he see? He sees Srimati Radharani and the Gopi friends. Yes. Just passing the time out there, because it's a very beautiful area. And so he approached them and asked them, young ladies, could you please give me something to eat? And they looked at him and they understood, this is Durvasa Muni. We got to watch out here. We got to watch out here. So, but they said, oh yes, of course, we'll get you something. Just sit down and relax. We'll just run home and get all sorts of nice foodstuffs, vegetable preparations, samosas, pakoras, chutney, sweets, and so on and so forth. And we'll be back in 20 minutes, and you can have a feast. And Durvasa Muni said, well, actually, I want something now. And understood, we are really in trouble here, because he's going to curse us. He would probably curse us all, each one of us, to become the 99th wife of some grumpy old man. Yeah. So, but what to do? What to do? Where they're going to come up with something to eat out here, kind of in the middle of nowhere. So then Radharani said, 1 minute. From the ground, she picked up a handful of dust. This is the dust of Vrindavan. It's called Vrajaraj. It's just very sacred and very powerful substance, actually. And she had a little bottle of Yamuna water, and she poured it in with this dust, mixed it up, and she made sort of like a mud cookie sort of thing. A mud cookie. And she went to Durvasa Muni and said, here, take this, try this. And Durvasa Muni looked like a mud cookie. And he's thinking, what, you're not serious, are you? But the gopis, the other girls, said, go and try it. She's very clever. You should try it. So he took it, and he sort of studied it a bit. Then he took a nibble, just little teeth, and he found, wow, it really tastes amazing. Gosh, how could it be? But it's true. And he ate the whole thing. And he said, could I have some more, please? So Radharani made a whole lot, a whole batch of mud cookies. And Durvasa Muni just ate them, and ate them, and ate them. And after that, he ate them further, and until he was just full to the brim. And he thanked her, and he blessed her. He blessed Srimati Radharani. He said, two blessings. I bless you. Whatever you cook will taste like nectar. And whoever eats your cooking will never get sick. So when Mother Yashoda, Krishna's mother, heard about that, then she arranged that Radharani would come every day to cook for Krishna, which she does. Of course, Radharani, I'm sure some of you ladies are very good cooks. Radharani cooks for Krishna every day. And, all sorts of different preparations, many different varieties of vegetables, samosas, and all these things. And she has never repeated one of the preparations in many years. How's that? I know there's one temple in Mathura, the Dwarkadish temple. It's near the Yamuna, Vishram Ghat. And there on Govardhan Puja Day, they prepare huge food offerings for the deity. And usually not less than 3,000 different preparations. Can you cook 3,000 different? You can't. 2? Anyway, yeah, she has cooked millions of preparations. She's never repeated one. Anyway, that's something to think about, ladies. Or men. Because they say, you know what they say? They say, men make the best cooks. Is it true? Anyway, let's not get competitive about it. So now Krishna is 1 year old. Krishna is 1 year old. These other two pastimes we read about, he was around 3 months. So, yeah, now he's 1 year old. So he's walking. And being Krishna, he's talking. Of course, most children, if you're familiar with children, like if you have children, then you know that at 1 year old they don't talk, generally. I mean, they certainly don't really talk, like people talk. That you may get the odd mama and papa or something like that. But they don't really talk, maybe 15 months if you're lucky, a year and a half, something like that. Then they start to be able to manage some talking. Krishna was talking the moment he appeared on this planet. The actual moment he stepped out fully dressed with a crown on and jewelry and things. He stepped out of his mother's womb. He immediately started talking in Sanskrit and not kitchen Hindi either, but actual Sanskrit. Yeah. Krishna's a polyglot, they say, a master of many languages, a master of all languages. So, okay. So Krishna's a year old, and he's at home, of course, and he's with his mother all day, every day. Wherever she goes, he goes with her. And on this particular day, Mother Yashoda was initially sitting with Krishna on her lap, but then suddenly she found that Krishna somehow is becoming heavier. And she's sitting, but then it becomes uncomfortable. He's too heavy. She just can't really manage. And she felt him to be heavier than a mountain until she just couldn't bear his weight any longer. Now, this was Krishna's arrangement because he knew Krishna is omniscient, so he knows all of us better than we know ourselves. In fact, he knows all of us completely. So he knew, Krishna knew, Trinavarta is going to come. And he's going to come, he's going to take the form of a whirlwind. He's going to take me up into the sky. He's going to want to kill me. But I want to be taken up in the sky, into the sky, so I can have a nice view around and see how are things all around the Vrindavan area. Krishna was really looking forward to this. And, he wants to kill me. Who cares? He wasn't worried about someone trying to kill him because he's Krishna. So anyway, in order to facilitate that, he could not remain in the hands of his mother Yashoda. So therefore he made himself too heavy, and she had to put him down. Yeah, and then Trinavarta came. And he's in the form of a whirlwind. So because he's spinning and spinning, I don't know if any of you have been in a whirlwind or a sandstorm, something like that. You just can't see. I mean, actually, you have to close your eyes, otherwise they get filled with dust, and it's really nasty. So now Mother Yashoda, she can't see her hand in front of her face, and she can't even open her eyes to try to see her hand in front of her face. And she's sort of groping around, where's Krishna? Where's Krishna? And she became very distressed, to sort of begin to appreciate the depth of intensity, of love of Mother Yashoda for her son Krishna. Just to begin, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami says that Mother Yashoda is ready to give her life millions and millions of times if there's one drop of perspiration on Krishna's forehead. What to speak of Krishna being in danger if there's just a little drop of perspiration on his forehead. Yeah, she feels so extremely, extremely strongly her love for Krishna, her affection for Krishna. So, but now she can't find Krishna, and she's just panicking and panicking and panicking. So anyway, Trinavarta, this whirlwind, is Trinavarta, and he picked up Krishna, and took him into the sky. And devotees, you have to suspend your, like, sort of sense of, what would you say, sense of reality, which you may have gained from in just ordinary everyday life and like even from scientists. When I say she took him into the sky 800 miles. 800 miles. And don't bother saying, oh, that's impossible. Prabhupada said, impossible. When it comes to Krishna, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. Because Krishna can do anything. Even the apparently impossible is just really easy for him. So Trinavarta took him into the sky, 800 miles, 1,200 kilometers into the sky. And somehow or other he wanted to strangle Krishna or somehow kill Krishna. But Krishna caught hold of his neck. And then so now Krishna's putting pressure on his throat. And he realizes, Trinavarta realizes, I'm in trouble here. And he tried to shake Krishna off and throw him off, but he couldn't. And Krishna's grip on his throat became so strong, Krishna actually choked him to death. And that was the end that was goodbye, Trinavarta. Badme Malenge, Trinavarta, if you understand Hindi. Anyway, don't mind my little bit of Hindi. So Krishna choked him, and he fell. Can you believe it? From 800 miles high, he fell and crash landed. Yeah. And Krishna was on top of him. So everyone came. Well, when he fell, of course, the whirlwind just subsided and just went away because he was the cause of whirlwind. So then all the Brijvasis, all the residents there, they all came out. Now this whirlwind is gone. And here, lying on some rocks, is the dead body of this giant demon. They actually don't say how big he was, but he was big. This giant demon body actually smashed to pieces. And Krishna's playing happily on Trinavarta's chest. Like, life is good. Life is normal. It's one of the main duties of children to play. And Krishna was playing there. So anyway, Trinavarta represents the anatha of the blinding effect of materialistic scholarship and so-called education and knowledge. And I can just tell you one little thing. I first saw Srila Prabhupada in 1972, April. I was studying philosophy at university in Auckland, New Zealand. And I was studying all the European philosophers. One of them, this was 50 years ago, one of them was, if I remember correctly, Wittgenstein. I don't know if any of you are from philosophical backgrounds. I think it was him in particular, who had, anyway, one of them, and I think it was him, had what he called the philosophy of the doubt. That you must doubt everything. just be too like a simpleton, just accept whatever people say. You must doubt. You must test them and just see, is it true or what is it? So he sort of propagated that, and it became like a popular type of practice. It wasn't just academic, but he was like a fairly popular figure. So many people were engaging in this, the philosophy of the doubt. Whatever people say, you just doubt it. Then after some time, he made an announcement. He said, all of you who are practicing my philosophy of doubt, you're all fools, because I doubt my own philosophy. You get it? So welcome to the world of materialistic education. At least, when you get in fields like science and things like that, there's a lot of speculation. I think I mentioned last night about Hawking's. You heard of Hawking's, right? Everyone's heard of Hawking's. A scientist, big brain, but he tried to sort of, you could say, translate things so normal people could understand them. And he did a book which became sort of like a bestseller, or at least was fairly popular. The title was something like A Brief History of Time. And he's sort of arguing how was everything created, basically. That's the idea, more or less. But then, of course, he died now. But just before he died, he discussed with his son how many of the concepts they presented in that book, he had now figured out they were wrong. Yeah. And so now his son and some other scientist, they've come out with the updated version. Yeah. And I don't know, it may be like half of the ideas he presented in his first book. He's now proved them all to be a lot of rubbish. How's that? It's not very good, is it? Yeah. And now there's some new ideas. And just wait a few years, and they'll probably realize that many of the things in the new book are also rubbish, and have to come up with another new book. And people will buy it. Because you know what they say? A fool and his money are easily parted. So like this, selling these books, and they know there's just at least so much in it they know is actually not true. So yeah, but people get caught up. In the news, it's almost like all you have to say is, the scientists said ... and people will just accept it. I mean, of course, not everything they say is nonsense. I mean, it's not like that at all, but certainly quite a bit is. Srila Prabhupada said that, what's his name? Charles Darwin. Prabhupada said, Charles Darwin, theory of evolution, Charles Darwin said that his grandfather was a chimpanzee, so to speak. At least we all come from apes, basically. So Prabhupada said, Darwin said that his grandfather was a chimpanzee. And Prabhupada said, and when I study his theory of evolution, I think, yes, it must be true. His grandfather must have been a chimpanzee. Because the theory is so stupid. His grandfather must have been a chimpanzee. Yeah. Well, even that, the theory of evolution, my God, shall we say, it has evolved. It's changed. It's changed. And there may be schools of thought, yeah, on what might have happened if there was evolution. And, interestingly enough, there's a whole lot of scientists now don't accept evolution. And they write books explaining why they don't accept evolution. And there's even devotees, scientists, who have written such books. So anyway, we don't want to. We take our knowledge from the Vedic scriptures. There's an interesting verse in Brahma Samhita, or is it? Anyway, there's an interesting verse somewhere. Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakto. Where's that from? It's Brahma Samhita? Okay. Vedeshu durlabham means if you just study the Vedas, even the Vedic literatures, if you just study them like in an academic sense, then durlabham, it's very difficult to understand the truth. But adurlabham atma bhakto, if you study them from the perspective of bhakti, of devotion, then it's adurlabham. Durlabham means difficult to understand. Adurlabham means not difficult. Actually, it means easy. It's really easy to understand the truth if you have devotion for the Lord. Because Krishna, Krishna, actually Sutta Goswami explains in Srimad Bhagavatam that he explains that Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yasu Vairagam Jnanam Chayad Hoitukam. That's the first canto, chapter 2, verse something. I can't remember what verse, but it's in the second chapter of the first canto. And what it means is, Vasudeva Bhagavati, if you render devotional service to Krishna, Vasudev is the name of Krishna, then Janayat Yasu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yad Ahaitukam, then causelessly knowledge and detachment will just arise in your heart without you making some big effort to become like to study and try and figure things out. Just by rendering service to Lord Krishna, then you find detachment arises. You just lose interest in material existence. Not that you have to fight off different attractions to this and that and try and get free from attachments. These things just dissolve and realization just comes. It just comes. You find suddenly, just understand. And how is that? Because Krishna within your heart reveals. It says, Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam. Ahaitukam means causelessly. But causelessly means there's no material cause. There is a cause. It's Krishna. But Krishna is not a material cause. He's spiritual, and he gives his devotees understanding. So like this, if we like, interesting example, if you study the Bhagavatam, seventh canto is the story of Prahlad. He was 5, and you see him speaking in the 7th canto. 5-year-old child. We don't have any 5-year-old children with us. Just a little child. But he's speaking this profound philosophy in Sanskrit. It's way beyond, anyone other than a highly elevated person, actually, at least in terms of the subject matter. And yeah, it's also grammatically complex and like this. But here's a 5-year-old child, and he's just speaking it. And it doesn't, like some of us, if we half know a foreign language and we have to speak, then we have to think, okay, how do I say this? And then we speak it. You can't just speak. But he's just speaking. Highly complex and very beautiful philosophy in very beautiful language. Because all these things have just been supplied to him by the Lord. In fact, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 15, Savasya chaham riddhi sanivishto mata smritya jnanam apohanam cha. I'm in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. These things are being supplied by Krishna. Yeah, they're being supplied by Krishna. Generally, for just ordinary people, they're being supplied in terms of their karma, how much intelligence or capability of remembrance they're meant to have on the basis of their karma. But for the devotees, Krishna, if the devotee is very sincere, very dedicated, Krishna will reveal so many things to the devotee. Prabhupada was once asked, do you know everything? Prabhupada said, no, I don't. But Krishna does, and he tells me. So, someone on that level, they can answer anything about anything, because Krishna is supplying them knowledge. So there's I'm going to go on to another pastime in a couple of minutes, but there's an interesting little story. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, he was active in the 1930s. And one time, it's the 1930s, and in those days, white people did not go to India, except for the British administration, like the people running the country, and that was only 100,000. Otherwise, Americans, you'd hardly ever get one American every decade or something like that. So this man came. He was a professor of Indology, studying, Indian culture and things like that. And he wanted to speak with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, you can actually read it. There's a biography called A Ray of Vishnu, in which the discussion appears, sort of a paraphrasing. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta explains to him, gives a very complex explanation of what's called the Das Avatar, the 10 main incarnations of Vishnu. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta if you've ever read any of his works, he spoke English, a highly academic type of English, like, people like us for whom English is just from childhood we've been speaking it. Sometimes we have to use a dictionary when we read some of his books, because some of the words he uses. Anyway, it's like that. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta explains to him about the Das Avatar, the 10 popular incarnations of Vishnu. And at the end he says, so how did you find my explanation? And the man hardly understood a word, but he didn't want to admit that. So he said, well, I'll have to think about it. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told him, no, don't think about it with your materially conditioned mind. Hear about it from devotees. Because if you think about it with your materially conditioned mind, you'll just confuse yourself further. But if you hear about it from devotees, there are 2 points. One is you'll get the right information to start off with. But the second point is that when the devotees speak such things, there is a potency, a Shakti, there's power in their words. And the Shakti, the power in their words, sort of feeds your intelligence and gives you the capability to understand these things. You see, by this transcendental potency from the words of the elevated devotees. So that's what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, and that's our principle. That's our principle. Yeah. So we learn by hearing from the Vedic literatures and authorized sources. And we don't depend on the materialistic scientists and just materialism to supply us knowledge. So there you go, devotees and friends. There's something about Trinavarta, the whirlwind demon, and the anartha he represents. Now, you know what? The next one is the story of Nalakuvara and Manigriva, or in other words, the Damodara Lila. Now, those of you who are devotees who are familiar with Krishna consciousness, you would know this probably inside out. Those of you who are new to Krishna consciousness, anyway, it'll be something new. But it's a very beautiful story. It's a really nice story. And you know what? Nobody gets killed. That's nice. So anyway, Krishna. Well, there is a verse. Let me read this verse. It's Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, 10th canto, chapter 9, verse 20. It's a real classic. Nemam virincho nabhavo nashrir apyanga samshraya prasadam labire gopi yatat prapa vimukti dat. Maybe you heard the word. Did you notice a particular word? Prasadam. The magic word. But actually, this word prasadam, it's famous for referring to transcendental foodstuffs which have been offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, spiritualized, purifying, and just the most wonderful food. But actually, the word prasadam means mercy. That's actually what it means. And it's sort of just been adopted to refer to this transcendental, spiritualized foodstuff. So here it's being used. Here's the translation. Neither Lord Brahma nor Lord Shiva nor even the goddess of fortune is always the better half of the Supreme Lord. So none of them can obtain from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the deliverer from this material world, such mercy as received by Mother Yashoda. So in other words, this pastime really focuses on Krishna, but Krishna and Mother Yashoda. And what an incredible devotee Mother Yashoda is. And as far as the prasadam, it means mercy. And so they're saying that neither Lord Brahma nor Lord Shiva nor Lakshmi got not as much prasadam as Mother Yashoda, but none of them got as much mercy as Mother Yashoda did. So it's a famous pastime, and at least in regards to Nalakuva and Manigriva, these two personalities, the anatha is, the unwanted thing is like the sense of pride that a person develops if they have an aristocratic birth, or if they're wealthy. If people are, highly placed in society, they usually, or not always, but many of them become sort of snooty, and they think they're very important. And if they've got money, if they've got loads and loads of money, then they think they're very important. So this was the case with Nalakuva and Manigriva, because they were the sons of Kuvera, who's the treasurer of the demigods, and who's extremely wealthy. Talk about being a billionaire, like, I don't know who's the richest person. Who is it? Mr. Musk. Anyway, whoever it is. These people with billions, compared to Kuvera, they're just small time. They're just small time. So anyway, they were like that, and we'll explain it as we go. But as far as the pastime is concerned, this is interesting. It took place on the Diwali day. Diwali is famous for being the day Lord Ram returned from exile. He returned to Ayodhya. It's also the day of the Damodara Leela. It's also the day Krishna killed Narakasura. We're not going to be talking about Narakasura, but he's an interesting character. His name is interesting. Consider this. Narak means hell, and Asura means demon. So Narakasura means demon from hell. How'd you like a name like that? Oh, what's your name? Oh, from hell. Thank you. Right. So those three pastimes happened on Diwali day. So here we are now. Mother Yashoda, like I said, many of you definitely will be familiar with this pastime, but don't worry, you can always hear it again and again and again. Prabhupada said repetition of a good thing is good. Yeah. And the more we study these things, the more we get out of them. Anyway, Mother Yashoda is churning yogurt into butter. I don't know how many of you, if any of you ever did that, any of you churned, made butter yourself by hand. It's fun. It's good exercise, I tell you what, you'll get really fit. And they would churn yogurt, not cream. When you churn cream into butter, it's very fatty and a lot of cholesterol and all that sort of stuff. But when you churn yogurt into butter, it's white. The butter is white. And it's like low to no cholesterol, but it's still got very nice taste. So anyway, she's churning the butter to make, the yogurt to make butter, and who should come but Krishna, Haribol, our hero, Jai Shri Krishna comes. Haribol, Haribol. He's still a small boy. He's like smallish. He's maybe 2 or 3 or something along those lines. He's still being breastfed. Now you might think, 2-year-old child being breastfed? Actually, it's very good. I spoke about it the other day, didn't I? Yeah, I knew one boy. He was breastfed until he was 10. Haribol. That's interesting, isn't it? And it was common for children to be breastfed until they're 5 or 6, ready to go to school. So Krishna came, he's sort of 3-ish, plus or minus, and he pulls on her sari. He wants to be breastfed. So she picks him up to breastfeed him. Now she's multitasking, breastfeeding and churning the yogurt into butter. When she happened to turn around and see that in the kitchen, just behind her, but inside, she's in the courtyard here, she has a pot of milk, and the milk is starting to bubble up, and it's going to boil over just now. And milk, milk is taken in Vedic culture to be liquid religiosity. So you never waste milk, not a drop. You never waste milk, and you never waste rice. Every grain of rice you waste, you will be short of in the future. And you might think, 1 grain of rice, if I throw it away, what's the big deal? If I'm short 1 grain of rice. But you add up enough grains of rice, and, you'll find you miss out on a whole meal. So you don't waste milk and you don't waste rice. So what she did, she quickly put Krishna down just like that. And suddenly he's on the ground. What happened? He was being breastfed. They say that a child feels the most secure and safe and peaceful when he or she is being breastfed. So there was Krishna. Life was good, being breastfed. Suddenly, bang, he's on the ground, looking up at the sky, and his mother's gone to save the milk. And Krishna got upset. The thing is, without getting into too much detail, the milk was for Krishna. So she didn't want to waste the milk anyway, but it was for Krishna. And she wanted to make sure that it was really nice for when he got it. So therefore she had to save the milk. So she went inside, and now Krishna is on the ground and feeling upset and disturbed and angry So Krishna, what he did, she was churning the yogurt into, the yogurt into butter in a fairly big, it might have been a 10 or 15 litre or maybe bigger type of container, a churning pot. And Krishna took a rock and broke it. And all the yogurt and half-formed butter and the sort of half-formed buttermilk just all came out, 20 litres, onto the floor, just wasted. Now Krishna's really upset. So Krishna climbed up. Somehow he climbed up. There were pots of butter suspended from the ceiling. Butter and other things suspended from the ceiling. Butter, yogurt, milk, cream, and so on and so forth. Even sweets were suspended from the ceiling. Krishna managed to climb up with a rock, and he broke some of those pots. What do you think? And all this butter and whatever else came out on the floor like 100 litres now. It's a real housewife's nightmare. It's just such a terrible mess. And then Krishna started eating the butter. And he ate, and he ate, and he ate, until he couldn't eat anymore. And the monkeys gathered. And Krishna started feeding the monkeys the butter. And the monkeys, they're happy, they're taking the butter. And they ate and ate until they were full. And now Krishna's handing them the butter. Take it. But they're backing off. No, we don't want any more. And Mother Yashoda comes out after saving the milk and dealing with the milk. And Krishna, because he's upset with his mother, please remember or understand, this is transcendental. This is not just like a naughty little boy just being sort of ordinary naughty. This is a special interaction between Krishna and one of his greatest devotees who's in the mood of being a mother. So, but Krishna still, he's upset, he got abandoned. So there he is, he's trying to feed the monkeys, but the monkeys are refusing. And Mother Yashoda comes out, and Krishna says, Mata, just see, your butter is so bad, even the monkeys won't eat it. And then Mother Yashoda understood, this boy has to be disciplined. Yeah. I got to educate this boy here to stop him doing this sort of nonsense. I mean, look at this mess and feeding the monkeys. So she thought, I've got to discipline him, I've got to punish him, actually, teach him a lesson. But in Vedic culture, real Vedic culture, they don't hit the children. Children, women, any females, women, and old men are never punished, like physically punished. Yes. So, and in fact, they're not just punished, they're not even meant to be verbally chastised. If they do something wrong, you should just find a nice way of putting it to them so they get it. And they understand, oh, yeah, I did something wrong. Without, particularly without hitting them. and like children to use violence against children in Vedic culture, it's out completely. And not only that, I remember one occasion when we had first moved into Bhaktivedanta Manor, 1973, and Prabhupada came. Prabhupada was there. He was giving class every morning on Bhagavad Gita. And we were in our central London temple at the time in Berry Place, just down the road, not far away. But we would come out on some mornings for the morning program. So this morning, Prabhupada gave class, now he's taking questions. And the president of our temple in Edinburgh asked Prabhupada a question. He said, Srila Prabhupada, in our temple in Edinburgh, there are many rats. It's an old building, it's 300 years old, and there are many rats. And rats are dangerous, or can be dangerous. So Prabhupada, is it all right if we kill the rats? Prabhupada's answer was, if you kill the rats, you should be killed. But the president didn't catch it, so he repeated the question. He didn't hear Prabhupada. You know, they're dangerous, they're unclean, and they're like this and they're like that. And is it all right if we kill them, Srila Prabhupada? And Prabhupada just said, if you kill the rats, you should be killed. Hare Krishna. Anyway, there's a lesson in that, isn't there? So, but now here, Mother Yashoda wants to punish Krishna. What's she going to do? She doesn't think I'm going to hit him and, like scream at him and verbally abuse him or something. She thinks, I will tie him up so he's restricted. Not to hurt him, but just to restrict his movement. And then he'll learn that it is not good to do things like this. Smash the pots and all that. So now she wants to catch him, to tie him up. But Krishna is just a small boy, very agile. And she is a middle-aged woman, because her and Nanda Maharaj, they had not had any children in their sort of usual times that a couple may have children, like in their 20s or 30s. She was already into her 40s, at least into her 40s. And she's kind of heavily built. So she's not agile like Krishna, able to dodge around. It's agile. Ekbar. He's not able to dodge around Mother Yashoda, but Krishna is very quick. So what to do? What to do? She really felt she wanted to help Krishna. She wanted to help him. Because if she doesn't straighten him out, he may grow up bad. And when he's an adult, instead of stealing butter, maybe he will steal motor cars. Because they didn't have motor cars. So maybe he will steal buffalo wagons. Yeah. And maybe he'll become a famous criminal. And maybe, in Hindi and other North Indian languages, butter, the word for butter is makan. Makan. Maybe he will become the head of the makan mafia. Yeah. And become a big criminal and get locked up in jail. And people will wonder, what sort of useless mother did this fellow have? So I've got to train him. I have to help him. Yeah, it's an important service for a mother. So how to catch him? Because he's dodging around and she's heavily built and she can't move so quickly. So after some time, in her mind, she's just thinking, I must do this. I have to do this for his sake. In other words, her mood of motherly love is just increasing and increasing and eventually just overflows. And when that happens, Krishna can't stop himself being caught. So she caught Krishna. But now she's got to tie him up. So she got a piece of rope. All right, piece of rope. He's a small boy. His waist is like something like that. Piece of rope like this. It's enough. She put it around his waist. It was 2 fingers too short. Oh, how could that be? It's a mystery. She got another piece of rope. That's like 3 meters of rope or something. Little Krishna. But it's 2 fingers too short. It won't get around once. Okay, she didn't even think that, this is impossible. Something is wrong here. She just thought, must get more rope. 5 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters. In the end, she had about 1 kilometer of rope. It wouldn't go around his waist once. It was always 2 fingers too short. In the end, again, her motherly love just overflowed, her mood of motherly concern. And even if she had that much rope, it would have been enough. So she managed to tie him. So I'm going to close now. We'll continue tomorrow, but I'll mention those 2 fingers, the rope was too short. One finger represents the effort of the devotee. Devotees do not just sit back and think, if Krishna wants it to happen, it'll happen. They try to make things happen in Krishna's service. And the second finger number 2, represents the mercy of Krishna. Now just look at these 2 fingers of mine. You see, 2 fingers? This is my effort finger, right? This is the Krishna's mercy finger. Do you get me? You see which one is bigger? Is it the same on your hand? Oh, look, see? It's the same. It is. You know what that means? It means that even though we have to make our effort, we really do, we shouldn't be lazy. Prabhupada said, in Krishna consciousness, there's no place for lazies or crazies. So we've got to make our effort, but still, Krishna's mercy is always the main thing, ultimately. So that's one lesson to learn from this. So, okay, devotees and friends, thank you for listening very attentively. We'll continue tomorrow morning at 7:30. So, what's tomorrow? Saturday. Oh, look, you don't have to work. Yay! So come 7:30, and we'll continue with a few things about this particular pastime, and we'll go on to some others. All right. See you tomorrow, 7:30. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.